ever wish your day wasn't dictated by your health? Are you tired of being tired all the time, or is pain holding you back from enjoying your time with your family? Would you like to manage your symptoms holistically, but you just don't know where to begin? I am so excited that you're here. This podcast will help you understand how natural remedies work so you can relieve your symptoms and live a fuller life. My name is Penny. I'm an occupational therapist, past pharmaceutical rep, a mom, and a wife with a strong faith, and for 25 years, I battled through debilitating Crohn's disease. I took all the medicine and did all the surgeries that stole so much time with my family, but never truly healed me. I finally realized if I was going to survive this disease, I needed to open my stubborn eyes to alternative solutions. I researched how perfectly our bodies work with plants and a lifestyle that made my health less of a burden to my family and aligned so beautifully with my faith and my medical training. If you're ready to reclaim your life with holistic options that are easy to implement as a busy mom and provide relief that lasts, this is the podcast for you. Hello there, Becoming Natural fans. This is Penny Sampler, your host of the Becoming Natural podcast, and this week is episode number 35, How I Found Strength Through Faith When I Wasn't Strong at All. This week, I am going to hop right back in and share about another wonderful moment that we witnessed when I was septic and still biding my time in the hospital, thinking I was never getting out of that place. It is my mom's favorite story and the one that she was referring to, and she told me that I needed to read the blogs, Penny, back from episode 25 when I talked about how she wanted me to read the stories that I wrote in my blog. So I thought it was apropos to share it this week because I was listening to a podcast. Oh, and before I forget, I need to read a review. I'm going to hop back into that. But my review for this week is from an unknown source. And it says, informative and entertaining. Not often do I come across someone who is legit knowledgeable about health and wellness, but it is also entertaining and can draw you in like this. Penny has a very unique ability to make me laugh and learn something every single time I hear her speak. This is a must-have podcast. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I think that laughter heals a heart for sure. So, okay, back to the podcast. I thought that this week it was appropriate because I was listening to another podcaster. I love podcasts, but just this week, and he was sharing his journey through the military and his troubled life to becoming a Christian. And he remarked that he knew that there were certain experiences or stories that may not mean much to other people, but in the moment and given his circumstances, there were specific occurrences of great meaning to him. Times where he knew, okay, this is totally God. He went on to say that while he had never heard God actually speak to him with words, he felt each experience was God speaking to him in just the perfect way that he needed that confirmation that this was God and he was in charge. I would say a God wink. I can completely identify with him. When I have had a certain feeling, I know it's the Holy Spirit moving in me, or at times I've heard a certain phrase from a random person where I took a double take because it was already on my mind. His example was one that he kept seeing a specific number. And I firmly believe God speaks to us in many ways. And when it's just you and God, you know, it's like being able to talk to your best friends with just your eyes. When you're in tune to God's moving and you're willing to submit to his plan wholeheartedly, it is awe-inspiring what you can witness, and so overwhelming to think of all the things that I have missed by not being still, by not paying attention and not watching and looking and waiting with anticipation for God to move in my life. I've said it 100 times, but I was sitting in a hospital bed for weeks on end, waiting for a miracle. In pain, miserable, quite honestly. I was watching, I was desperate. I was listening to my praise and worship music to keep me sane. We had so many people praying for me and for my family. If I've ever been spiritually connected, per se, this was a clear connection. I could hear a pin drop. We felt, heard, and saw everything. Yet there are no words powerful enough to describe any of our experiences with what each of those moments deserve. But I can try to do it justice. I just want to impart that sometimes miracles are felt as much or more than they are heard or seen, which makes it really difficult to share a feeling in a way that someone else can understand how you felt. I'm sure that you can understand what I'm saying, but sometimes that feeling is just so overpowering and you just have this welling up inside of your chest. It's indescribable. So I'm going to give it a try. So here we go. At this stage, I'm just going to give a little background before we get going into the blog. But at this stage in my hospital stay, it was probably about 8 weeks since my original surgery and roughly 4 weeks at this second hospital, knowing that I was septic and hanging on for dear life, literally. I did not have any optimistic outlook from any of my amazing doctors who were on my case. They wanted so desperately to bring good news to our room. I know they did. They took such great care of me and of my family, but I just had so much infection, too much, and enough that most of them initially stated at different times that they were not sure that I could overcome it. So, while my surgeon had manually removed many of the balls of infection located in my abdominal cavity, there was one spot that had actually been called out even by the original surgeon at the initial surgery to remove my stomach back in May when it all began. So, even at that hospital, they sent me to interventional radiology to drain the spot for potential infection. It had been with me the entire time. Of course, that original hospital still discharged me, sent me home. I had elevated white blood counts and low grade fevers, which scream infection. But I digress. God got me where He wanted me to be, and that was right where I was at this time. I was mentally, physically, and emotionally exhausted. And I cannot fathom how exhausted my family was just sitting by my bed for all those weeks, let alone years. So, this is the blog I posted in my family blog shortly after I was discharged from the hospital, trying to keep track of the good things that happened to us. It's called God Moments, the Heart. By the 4th week in the hospital, I was growing discouraged. We needed a lift, and we needed it in a physical change kind of a way. I was basically sitting in the hospital recovering from many incisions, allowing them to drain, and praying that the infection went away and the damaged areas inside of me were being repaired. It seemed like this could take forever. There was no end in sight. During my 3rd surgery, the drain that looked infectious prior to the surgery was replaced. It was draining from the duodenal bulb area that caused us so much grief already. Anatomy lesson. The duodenal bulb is the area just outside your stomach exit. My surgeon said he scrubbed and washed and scrubbed again that area really well this time so as to practically guarantee the infection would not return. However, I like dates, parameters, and measurable goals. I asked him when we would know we were in the clear, since this was now the 3rd drain placed in the exact same place due to an infection that would not go away. My surgeon said that usually by 5 days, we can feel pretty confident that the infection is gone. And he told us that if that drain stayed clear, we could start discussing sending me home. Holy Hannah, I could have leaped from my bed and kissed him at that point. I was not expecting to hear the word home. There were still some other things that I had to work on over the next week, like gaining weight and a few numbers in my blood work, but nothing that wouldn't allow me to go home. You better believe we had a countdown going for those 5 days. No one had mentioned home to me ever in that entire stay. I had a big goal. Every morning, either my mom or mother-in-law took a picture of the drain to report that it was still red and bloody versus white and infectious. This we celebrated every single day. So each day, whomever was with me sent a picture of my problematic drain in a text thread to everyone in our family. And this might be gross for some, but for us, red was health, red was healing, red meant I was close to home. Anything other than clear and red, and I mean like, when I say clear and red, like it was a red, like red water. It was thin. It wasn't thick like blood, but it was clear and red versus white and infectious. That was the difference. So anything other than clear and red meant infection. And I didn't think about what the alternative was. We were focused on it staying red. So when this drain was placed for the 3rd time, right before my surgery, my surgeon came to talk to us. And this was when he got a little bit teary. And he was as frustrated as we were. And he had done everything he knew to do for me over multiple surgeries. This surgery was basically the last hope. So after surgery, every day, multiple times a day, my nurse would check on this remaining drain, having had 4 already removed from across the bottom of my stomach. The nurse emptied and measured the amount of fluid each time that she came in, and I'm not sure if it was helping me or hurting me that I worked in a hospital and knew far more than the average patient about what my potential risks were with that fluid, but I watched them intently as they measured the contents of the drain. I became very good at reading nurses' faces since all of this drama began. The previous 4 drains were always draining red and clear, and we never had any concern. They were never whitish or opaque like this one had always been. This one, my experience with my own patients allowed my mind to wander to worst case scenarios, and none of them were good. 5 days. We needed just 5 days. We made it to day 2, then day 3, then day 4, One doctor's opinion was even that we passed day 3 meant that I was in pretty good shape. But this girl had been through the ringer and I was not going to celebrate yet. I could not let myself get excited and then be let down again. So I remained focused on day 5. The drains, if you've never seen a drain or had a drain, they're about the size of your palm. And mine had about an 8 to 10 inch tube attached that inserted into my lower abdomen, one next to the other until only this one remained. They were plastic. And while I tried not to look at them, you could squeeze them, shake them, see all that was inside of them because they were clear. It just looked like a clear ball with red liquid inside. Never discoloring the bulb itself. Maybe if it sat in one place all night, there might be a tiny spot where the blood left a small speck of color that quickly disappeared when I picked it up. But day 5 came, and I woke up early on day 5, as I did every morning. The nurses had been coming in and out all night as usual. New shifts started at 7. So the night nurse was hurrying up to finish her work on me before my day nurse came in to say good morning and do her morning check on me. And it took me about a minute to wake up before it registered to me that, oh my gosh, today was day 5. I quickly scrambled in my bed to find my drain in the sheets to see if it was still indeed red and clear. It was red and clear, all right. But when I picked it up this time, the pooling of any blood in the bulb didn't quickly disappear like it had for the previous 4 days. When I picked it up, a perfect and very clear shape of a red heart remained on the inside of the bulb as the measurable drainage fell to the bottom of the drain with gravity. If you want to see this picture, hop on over to my podcast page on my website, becomingnatural.com, and I will post the picture of the perfectly shaped red heart in the drain. There was never a day where there was anything remotely close to a heart in my bulb. There was never a day a picture showed even a sign of a significant amount of blood sticking to the inside of the bulb. But on day 5, the day that we had been laser focused on, so hopeful for good news after so much bad news, there was my heart, my promise that I was going to be okay. My God wink, I would say, that I could have easily overlooked. It meant nothing to the nurse who eventually came to measure it, but that heart meant to me and to my mom and to our entire family something big. It meant everything. I quickly showed my mom that not only was I red and clear, there was a perfect heart inside my bulb. She, of course, took a picture and blasted it to the whole family. We made it. Day 5. And the heart sealed the deal. And of course, we both cried. Another lesson that I've learned through this incredible trial is that God is everywhere. He is in everything. But if we aren't looking for him, then we will never see him. We are so distracted or explain away the little or even the big things. God gets the same thrill of surprising us, I would imagine, as I get surprising my own children. And that was the end of my blog post. So just to cover that a little bit, once again, we received confirmation, even through small things that were really big to me, that God had this. That heart didn't mean anything for anybody else. It didn't mean anything for my health, nor was it noted in my chart by the nurse for reference, but it filled us with so much hope and joy and excitement, more than any medicine could do for me at that time. We made it to day 5, and the Lord knew how anxious I was for day 5 and expecting good news. It was my God wink and my ticket out of there. The clear red blood told my doctors that troubling spot was clear of infection, but that heart reaffirmed my faith to let go and let God be in control of me. He had plenty of surprises for me to come. Plenty. This week, I had a long text thread with someone that I love who's hurting. And regardless if your pain is emotional or physical, pain sucks. Pain can drive you mad, truly mad. The drains and the red heart were simply the winding down of a very long, painful, and scary time for me. I told this person this week who was feeling alone despite being surrounded by people who loved and supported her how much I could relate. I told her that when I think about the physical pain that I endured, I never wanted to say that I felt alone because I had every one of my family members there with me and they never, ever left me alone, ever. Before then, I could drive myself to the ER. I stayed in the hospital by myself many times. I was fine. Hospital is my second home. This time was so different and I was so scared to be left alone. I never spent a night alone in the hospital. And our friends, no words, our friends moved mountains for my kiddos. I never wanted to detract from the amazing support that I had and that my husband had. But enduring pain like that, I truly was alone, just me and God, even if my bed was surrounded by 50 people. No one could help me, even though I know that any one of them would have stepped into my shoes if they could to carry me through it. I know how alone it feels sometimes when you are surrounded by people that love you. That's when your feet grow roots and deeper they go, because I was literally living on a wing and a prayer. That's when my favorite verses, 2 Corinthians 12:9-10, carried me. But he said to me, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong." For some reason, I still cannot memorize these verses. I don't know why I cannot remember them. Maybe I just won't try because it was such a hard time, but I know where to go to read it. And I made a little image, and for a long time, it was printed and hanging on my bathroom mirror. I need to stick that back up there again. But I hated it when people said, "Penny, you are so strong." I know people didn't know what to say to me, and it came from a loving place in their hearts, but I was so broken and weak, just like the verse said. I was not strong at all. What in the world were they thinking? I had no physical strength, no fortitude. I had immense guilt for not being a mom in that time, for leaving my boys, who were very young, alone, for leaving my husband alone with the boys to manage when after so much time, he had to go back to work, for my husband having to deal with a broken wife. I was not strong at all. I knew I was really good at stuffing things and muscling through, but strong was nowhere close to what I was. I could focus, and I was focused on steps forward to be me again. Once I finally knew I was going to go home after that amazing red heart showed up in my drain, I still didn't know if normal was my future. That was yet to be determined. I didn't know what not having a stomach meant for me, or if my energy would return, let alone if my body could sustain itself with enough nutrients in the tiny little bit of stomach that remained, even to live a good life. I had no idea what my future was. I was not strong. And one day it just smacked me. If people are really seeing strength in me, and it's not just someone that's grasping for words just to be nice, it was not me. The only answer was that the strength that people were seeing and saying that I was strong was God's power in me, just like 2 Corinthians said. And then I felt this amazing feeling of being seen by God. Like my huge, amazing God of all things actually knew my name, Penny Sampler, and who I was, and was answering prayers for just little old me. Such a tiny speck in his eye compared to the entire world and his creation. Once I allowed my mind to shift from resentment and resenting those words to realizing that maybe people did see strength in me, and maybe that strength that people saw was a gift and not just nice words that they were saying, I began to welcome them, because then I knew God was near. My angel armies were close by. My favorite song that we talked about in episode 10 by Chris Tomlin. I fell asleep every night listening to it. Angel Armies. Those song lyrics were amazing for me. It makes me feel strong to imagine an army of, 10-foot angels, many of them escorting me to radiology or to surgery. I always imagined myself rolling, I guess, in my gurney down the hall with these angels on either side of me. That was my vision that kept me sane, to escorting me to have any sort of test anytime I left my room, sitting around my bed, protecting me. If God was on my side and these huge monster angels were protecting me and on my side, then I was on the winning side. And I refused in my stubbornness to let Satan win. I am stubborn, and I think I was given that for a reason. But the only option was defeat. And if I didn't go out of this world swinging, it meant that Satan won. I really had gotten to a point where I was okay with dying to escape the pain, if that's what God's plan was for me. I really wasn't afraid of dying. Just to be clear, I was afraid of leaving my husband and my boys alone, but I was okay with dying because I knew where I was going. But I was determined, of all things, not to let Satan win. I know I have mentioned how many times I've read the book of Job. Over the years, I've read it over and over and over again, down to the very pathetic part where he was sitting on the rock, scraping pustules on his arm with a stone. And I know I've said that before. Clearly, it impacted me. But his wife even told him to curse God because she pointed out everything had been taken from him, and she thought God had deserted him. But Job said to her, if we gladly take blessings from God, how can we then not take difficulties? Oh, like that went straight to the heart for me. If I can receive the blessings and all the many amazing things that God has granted in my life and not be able to accept the difficulties, then who am I? So that just really spoke to my heart. And I imagined Satan and God having the same talk over me that they had over Job. Satan saying, she can't take the pain. She can't take the guilt. She, Penny, can't function with Crohn's. Penny can't raise her kids. Penny can't do this or that. All the things that I was able to do that I shouldn't have been able to do. And God just over there saying, just you watch. Just you watch. She's got this. She'll do it. So see, now I'm smiling about the hardest part in my life. Job is so empowering to me. I encourage you, if you've never read it, read it front to back. It's not long and it's really, really good, especially if you're struggling. So once I learned to receive the "you're so strong" as a compliment and faith that God was carrying me, kind of like the poem Footprints in the Sand, if you've ever read that, as opposed to hating it when people told me I was so strong. I didn't want to have to be strong. I was exhausted for years of being in pain and trying to be a good mom and living through just a day at a time. That change in mindset, and I really hate the word mindset, but that change really helped me be encouraged instead of discouraged by looking for those little things that speak to you specifically, be it my heart and my brain or the numbers like that podcaster mentioned he kept seeing. Do you know that he said he kept seeing the number 444? He saw it in many different times, and one time the clock said 444. He decided to find out what 444 meant. And I don't know a thing, for the record, about numbers, but I just searched up what does 444 mean? And it says the number 444 is considered an angel number in numerology, symbolizing clarity, stability, and support from guardian angels. It often indicates that you are on the right path and encourages you to trust your intuition and decisions. That's exactly what he said he found too. Can you imagine that he kept seeing that number, and that was his God wink that he will say till he's blue in his face, was the moment that he knew God was near during a very challenging time for him. One of my many God winks, the 5 days of pure anticipation leading to an inexplicable and perfect heart inside my drain, was loud and clear to me. It was my 444. That drain that was once filled with infection and filled me with fear became the same vessel that gave me incredible hope and healing. God is so good. So you can see why this is my mom's favorite. And I later found out she carries this picture of the heart with her everywhere she goes and tells everyone about it, as only a mom would do. But it was pretty special and incredibly meaningful for us. We miss so many signs in our busy world, and you don't have to be sick to see signs. You just have to be willing. For us, we were sitting in a hospital room for weeks on end, fully expecting and waiting for miracles, trusting that miracles would happen. We weren't going to miss a thing, and I am so grateful that we didn't miss this one. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you've enjoyed today's episode, hit that follow button, leave a 5-star review if you're so willing, and help spread the message of Becoming Natural by sharing it with a friend. Check out the resources in the show notes and join the email list to stay on top of all the latest and greatest happenings at Becoming Natural as we roll out exciting new things while we grow. Until next time, take those baby steps to a more natural life and always give yourself grace. Progress, not perfection, is the goal. See you next week.